Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options to Play video update. So, wrapping up just an absolutely bonkers week. The only way I know how to, right? With earnings on the radar. And I'll be the first to acknowledge that these last 2 weeks, volatility has just completely dominated these earning setups in the sense that really earnings just, I don't want to say they're not relevant, because if these companies reported bad numbers, they would get pounded probably doubly as bad as they normally would, right? But a lot of companies are just seeing such huge swings on a day-to-day basis that earnings are really kind of like secondary. All right. And honestly, that's something that'll probably start to change, especially as we get into the next quarter. So as we get into April, or and we start to get like people starting to focus more on like the next earnings season, definitely going to see a bigger impact. Right now, probably need volatility to like pause or pull back. Then you probably see another focus more on these earnings trades. But that being said, there are still a few interesting setups, even taking into account the fact that the overall volatility is still kind of like dictating the action, right? So before the open Monday, nothing. After the close Monday, Coop, about 22 points. That's what's priced in here. Hasn't really been materially rewarded for earnings in I'd say almost like 2 years. And it seems to me like a pretty tough environment to expect that to change. All right. I feel the numbers should be pretty solid overall, but I still think like the action is going to be dictated possibly more by what's going on in the market that day, or maybe what software stocks are doing that day. Um, the way I have been looking at these types of names, so like some of these software names, calendar spreads, longer dated option spreads, that'll help smooth out the really, really expensive implied volatility for like the near term contracts, right? And like that's, until like those option prices start to come down on these near term contracts, that's really kind of like one of the strategies that's really in focus for me. All right, YY. So I guess they rebranded the name of the company, Joy now. But YY, 6.5 points is what's priced in there. Some China tech names have been acting really strong. This one is not one of them. All right. So it's stuck right at key yearly support around 60. It definitely seems susceptible to the downside to me, especially if the numbers aren't solid. I haven't traded this one in a while, but might be worth a look for some sort of trade on the bear side. For the open Tuesday, nothing that catches my eye. After the close Tuesday, couple ones. So first off, FedEx, the big one, about 17 and a half to 18 and a half. The option spreads are really wide right now. That's why I'm giving like a little bit wider range. Um, it's a big industrial report for several reasons. Well, first being that it's a big company. Second, first major name in the sector to report since everything started going crazy with the coronavirus, right? Especially in the U.S. So a lot of people are going to be looking at to see what they have to say, what their commentary is on that. Also, going to be kind of an indication what global numbers look like, right? Europe. So this has had some really big moves recently on earnings, and to me, this is actually still one of the more interesting setups, even though the stock has collapsed. And if I can get the pricing down a little bit, might look at maybe some sort of volatility strategy on that one. MongoDB, so another software name, about 20 to 21 points was priced in. Similar to Coop, doesn't really have a great history of being rewarded. It did have a big move this quarter last year, but that was for the most part like kind of it. I feel like numbers should be solid, but any strategy probably needs to be longer dated just to smooth out that high implied volatility on those near term contracts. Billy. So YY, bad. Billy, good, right? I mean, it is off a little bit today, but you can see that it's much closer to its 52-week high, and it held in pretty well for a long stretch. 3.5 points is what they're looking for, and it seems to be one of the winners of the China lockdown, streaming service name, right? So, I feel like the numbers are decent. I mean, we saw JD put a new 52-week high. We saw VIP Shop putting a new 52-week high on earnings. So I feel like if the numbers are decent, like I wouldn't be surprised to see this maybe get rewarded to the upside. So I might look at maybe like a speculative bullish strategy on that one. For the open on Wednesday, big staple report, General Mills. So about 4.5 points or so. The spreads are a little bit wider too. Volatility really, really expanded on the staples big time, and that may make this quarter for General Mills interesting. Also, because it was been range bound for basically the past year, which you can see here, um, and options they're not cheap by any means, but I also think that like if it does break this long range, you're probably looking at like a 10% measured move, right, out of like a long year-long range. So maybe something lower debit, maybe a little bit further out of the money, something more speculative, just to see if it does in fact break that really this really long range that it's kind of been stuck in, right? Neo, another China name, about 65 cents. This was back in play in January and February. We actually traded this, but all of these recent coronavirus headlines really took a toll. It does look okay technically from a longer perspective because it's holding a higher low right now. But I don't really know what this week's action is going to be like on that one. And to me, like I think I might prefer to wait, see what the numbers look like, see what the stock looks like after, and I would probably prefer to like view this more from like a swing perspective, especially if it gets back up near 5, just because I feel like there's more potential from like a longer term perspective. After the close on Wednesday, Five Below. So like a low priced retailer, almost like a dollar store. They're looking for about 12 to 13 points. Retail has just been crushed recently. Five Below broke all key levels of support. They already guided in January though, and for me, that basically means avoid. I mean, you guys know my opinion on stuff that guides early at this point, so probably going to be an avoid for me. Another retailer though on Wednesday is more interesting. Williams Sonoma, 5.5 to about 6.5 points in that ballpark. They haven't got holiday sales yet, so more interesting. This one's collapsed too. I mean, it basically lost, a little bit over 40% in the last 3 weeks. It's pretty heavily shorted as well. Option pricing, really not too bad in my opinion at 5.5 to 6.5. I feel like it does seem to have room either way, so might look at a volatility strategy on that one. Thursday before the open, Darden, another train wreck. Literally lost 50% in the last 3 weeks. 10.5 to 11 points is what they're looking for. I mean, restaurant stocks just ugly, ugly, ugly. Darden, it is extremely oversold, but for me, this stock in particular has been kind of a tough trading name in the past. And I really don't have the slightest clue what to make of it right now. I mean, after that drop, I imagine expectations are low, but that doesn't also mean it's going to be like an easy bounce candidate. So I just don't have a feel for it. I'm on the fence with it. Might just end up leaving that one alone. Lennar. So a big home builder report. 6.5 to 7.5 points. What they're looking for there. I mean, as you can see from the charts I'm pulling up, I mean, just nothing was immune to the selling this week. Lennar gave back basically all of its gains from the last year. Numbers in home builders have been pretty strong, but like I mean, uncertainty about the economy probably just going to make this group tough in the near term. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it. So I guess I prefer to watch for maybe like a swing setup after the print versus playing this one on earnings. And then last Thursday before the open, Momo. So another China tech name. 4 points is what they're looking for, and definitely lagging. Kind of in that same ballpark as YY. Numbers haven't been very good recently either. Stock is below all moving averages, below support, and seems susceptible to more downside, in my opinion. So I'll look at bearish idea in the earnings. Thursday before the bell, CrowdStrike. So we have traded this one recently. They're looking at about 6 points for earnings this coming week, and the action's been very, very weak, but the numbers have been pretty consistently strong. Software stocks, again, like I said with MongoDB and Coop, They're really not getting rewarded on earnings at the moment. But if I was going to choose one software stock next week for earnings to play, this one might be it. And because even though option pricing is not cheap, it does seem like this is a type of setup that it could move 6+ points in either direction. So they're pricing in 6. I feel like it could potentially move more than that. So if I was going to choose one, I think this would be the one I would go after. And then last but not least, Ollie's. So another retailer. 6.5 to 7.5 points is what they're looking for. It was rocked in August. Had a decent bounce back print in December, but really couldn't like reclaim too much of what it lost. And now it's breaking down again below all moving averages, below support. Retail has been a real rough spot. And it seems like if we can bounce back up into the high 40s, 50s, might even be like a better setup for some sort of like speculative like bearish strategy, especially after they haven't been super consistent on earnings over the past 6 to 9 months. And that's it. Nothing before the open on Friday. All right. So if you like these videos and you're looking for more information on options education, or if you're looking for actual option trade ideas, please follow up with the link in the description of the video for more information on options and play. All right. Have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you on Monday.